My name is Marcus, and I'm an HVAC repair and installation specialist. What happened that July evening changed not only my life but the destinies of several people forever. This is a story about how one random encounter led to the destruction of an entire world. It was a scorching Thursday when my colleague David and I drove to the last call of the day. The address was in a prestigious Atlanta neighborhood, a large house with a pool and perfectly manicured lawn. We were greeted by Linda, a woman of incredible beauty about 35 years old with long chestnut hair and sea blue eyes. She wore a light summer dress that accentuated her slender figure and radiant smile. "Guys, thank you for coming so late," she said with a warm smile that made my heart skip a beat. "The air conditioner in the living room broke yesterday, and guests are arriving tomorrow for a dinner party." David, a married man with 3 children, was always professional and reserved. We quickly got to work on the unit. Linda brought us cold water and showed genuine interest in our work, asking thoughtful questions about the repair process. She told us about herself, worked as a marketing manager for a major corporation, loved traveling, had just returned from a month-long European vacation. "Where's your husband?" David asked while installing a new component, making casual conversation. "Joel works in the merchant marine," she replied, and something in her voice shifted, became softer, more distant. "He's been at sea for 3 months now, still has 2 months left before he comes home." I noticed how her fingers played nervously with her wedding ring as she spoke about him. There was something in her eyes, loneliness perhaps, or something deeper I couldn't quite identify at that moment. When we finished the repair work, it was already 9 in the evening. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Linda suggested we have a drink to celebrate the successful repair. David immediately declined. His wife was waiting for him at home with dinner and homework help for the kids. "Marcus can stay if he wants," David said, packing up his tools with practiced efficiency. "I need to get home to the family." As David drove away, I found myself alone with this captivating woman. We sat on her spacious terrace, drinking expensive wine and talking about everything under the sun. She was intelligent, witty, well-traveled, and surprisingly down-to-earth despite her obvious wealth. We discussed books, movies, places we'd visited, dreams we had for the future. "It gets so quiet here when Joel's away," she confided as the stars began to appear. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a beautiful prison." As the evening progressed, she moved closer to me on the outdoor sofa. When the last light faded from the sky, she looked into my eyes and whispered, "I'm so lonely," and kissed me first. What happened next was like moving through a dream. We found ourselves in her bedroom, and I wasn't thinking about consequences, about right or wrong, about the man whose house this was. It was only in the morning, when I saw the photograph on the nightstand, Linda with a tall man in a naval uniform, both smiling happily, that the full weight of what I'd done hit me. The photo showed Joel in his dress whites, strong jaw, weathered hands, kind eyes. He looked like a good man, a man who worked hard to provide for his wife, who trusted her completely. And I had betrayed that trust in the most fundamental way possible. For the first few days, I tried to forget about that night, to pretend it had been a moment of weakness that would never happen again. But Linda kept calling, texting, sending me messages that made my heart race. She was magnetic, intoxicating, and despite my guilt, I couldn't resist her pull. "I can't stop thinking about you," she'd text me during her lunch breaks. "Joel calls every few days and I feel so guilty, but when I think about you I feel alive again," she confessed during one of our phone conversations. Our encounter repeated itself then again and again. I started visiting her house regularly, always careful to park a block away, always checking that none of the neighbors were watching. We developed a routine, a secret rhythm that felt both thrilling and terrifying. "Joel comes back in a month," she said one evening as we lay in her bed, moonlight streaming through the curtains. "I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how to go back to the way things were. I should have ended it then. I should have walked away, given her space to figure out her marriage, done the right thing. But I was selfish, addicted to the excitement, to the way she made me feel like the most important person in her world. But fate had other plans." Joel returned early. His contract was cut short due to technical problems with the cargo vessel. The shipping company had to dock for major repairs, and the crew was given unexpected shore leave. Linda told me about this in a panic, her voice shaking over the phone. "He's coming home tomorrow," she cried. "I thought I had 3 more weeks. Marcus, I'm terrified. He'll know something's different." "He was asking about the wine purchases on our credit card," she continued, her breathing rapid and shallow. "He found a hair in our bedroom that wasn't mine. I told him it must have been from the cleaning lady, but he looked suspicious. And last night on the phone he said something felt off, that I sounded different. A week after Joel's return, everything unraveled. I never found out exactly how he discovered our affair, but he found our text messages on Linda's phone, messages she had forgotten to delete in her panic about his early return. What happened next showed me just how much I had underestimated this man. Joel contacted me first. His voice was calm, controlled, colder than the Atlantic winds he'd weathered for years. "Marcus, we need to talk. But not now. Wait for me to contact you again." The next day my troubles began. Customers started canceling contracts without explanation. Suppliers refused to sell me equipment, claiming policy changes or inventory issues. Someone was sending anonymous letters to my clients with compromising information about my unprofessional behavior and questionable ethics. The letters were carefully crafted, never containing outright lies but painting me as unreliable, untrustworthy. They mentioned inappropriate conduct during service calls, and suggested that clients might want to reconsider their business relationships. Within a week, my business was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Joel worked methodically and ruthlessly. He had learned patience and strategic thinking during his years at sea, dealing with storms and equipment failures where one wrong move could cost lives. He knew how to destroy a reputation without breaking any laws, how to apply pressure in ways that couldn't be traced back to him. He had connections in the local business community, fellow veterans, men he'd served with who now worked in various industries. A word here, a favor called in there, and suddenly my professional world was crumbling around me. But for Linda, he had prepared something much worse, something that would destroy not just her livelihood but her entire social existence. One morning she called me in tears, her voice barely recognizable. "Marcus," he posted a video on Facebook. "Security camera footage from around our house, showing you coming and going at different times. All our friends are seeing it." Joel hadn't just published the video randomly, he had created an entire narrative. Photos, dates, timestamps, GPS data from Linda's phone showing when she was at places she'd claimed not to be. He presented it all like a detective's case file, methodical and damning. Their mutual friends, neighbors, colleagues, everyone in their social circle learned about the affair. The post went viral within their community. People shared it, commented on it, discussed it in local Facebook groups. Linda became a cautionary tale, the subject of gossip at coffee shops and dinner parties throughout Atlanta. But even this wasn't the end of Joel's campaign. He personally met with Linda's parents and her supervisor at work. He presented everything calmly, with facts and documentation, without emotional outbursts. He let the evidence speak for itself. Linda's parents, conservative churchgoers who had always been proud of their daughter's marriage and success, refused to speak to her. Her father, a retired military man himself, felt personally betrayed by what he saw as disrespect to a fellow serviceman. At work, while they couldn't fire her outright for personal matters, she found herself transferred to a lower position with reduced responsibilities and pay. The company's executives, many of whom knew Joel through veterans organizations, made their displeasure known in subtle but unmistakable ways. "He's destroyed my life," Linda cried during one of our final conversations. "Everyone has turned away from me. Even my sister won't return my calls. My own mother hung up on me yesterday." The social isolation was complete and devastating. Linda, who had been popular and well-connected, suddenly found herself completely alone. Invitations stopped coming, friends stopped calling, and even casual acquaintances avoided her at the grocery store. When the divorce proceedings began, I expected Joel to fight tooth and nail for every asset, to make the legal battle as painful as possible. But he surprised everyone by not contesting the division of property. Linda received half of the house value, half of their savings, her car, and jewelry, everything the law entitled her to. "I don't understand," she confided to me. "He's letting me have everything I'm legally entitled to. No fight, no arguments." His lawyer said he just wants it over with quickly. But what good was money when you couldn't live in the community where you'd built your entire life? Linda was financially secure but socially destroyed in the city where she'd grown up, where she'd built her career and relationships. Joel simply vanished from Atlanta. He sold his half of the house to Linda at fair market value, took his personal belongings and moved closer to a new port of registry. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he bought a small apartment near the ocean in Savannah and returned to the merchant marine, signing on for longer contracts that kept him at sea for most of the year. He never tried to contact me again after that first phone call. He didn't need to. His message had been delivered clearly and effectively through actions rather than words. The last time I saw Linda was outside a Whole Foods about 6 months later. She had lost weight, looked exhausted, older than her years. She tried to smile when she saw me, but her eyes held an emptiness that hadn't been there before. "I'm moving to California next month," she told me, adjusting her sunglasses to hide the dark circles under her eyes. "My sister finally agreed to let me stay with her until I can get back on my feet. I can't live here anymore, Marcus. Every day I see people who used to be my friends and they look right through me." She had found a new job with a marketing firm in San Diego, a fresh start where nobody knew her story. But starting over in your late 30s, leaving behind everything you've built, isn't easy for anyone. My business never fully recovered. I had to let go of my employees, sell my equipment at a loss, and eventually take a job with a large HVAC company as a regular technician. Joel had achieved his goal. He had destroyed both of us without ever raising his voice, without ever breaking the law. The reputation damage was permanent. Even years later, when people in the industry mentioned my name, someone would inevitably bring up that situation with the married woman. It followed me like a shadow, limiting my opportunities and serving as a constant reminder of my choices. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that July evening, about the choice that changed everything. About the price that all participants in this story paid. Joel returned to the sea, carrying his pain and betrayal with him on long voyages across empty oceans. Linda fled to California, trying to rebuild a life far from everyone who had known her before. And I remained, living with the memory of how easily one thoughtless action can destroy multiple lives. I've learned things about myself that I'm not proud of. About my capacity for selfishness, about how easily I could justify my actions when it suited me. About how I convinced myself that what we were doing wasn't really hurting anyone since Joel was thousands of miles away. But Joel wasn't just thousands of miles away, he was working, earning money to support the woman he loved, trusting her completely while she betrayed that trust in their own home, in their own bed. The most frightening thing about this entire story is that Joel never once raised his voice, never made a scene, never threatened anyone. He simply methodically, step by step, dismantled our lives like an experienced mechanic taking apart an engine. Every move was calculated, every action served a purpose, and the result was devastatingly effective. He showed us that revenge doesn't require violence or drama. Sometimes the most powerful response to betrayal is cold, methodical justice that lets the consequences speak for themselves. The wife he had loved and trusted had cheated on him with a stranger in their home while he worked to provide for their future. And he made sure that both she and I understood the true cost of that betrayal. In quiet moments, I wonder if Joel planned his response during those long nights at sea after he discovered the truth. Did he stand on the deck of his ship, looking out at the endless water, methodically planning each step of our destruction? Did he find peace in that planning, or did it eat away at him like it still eats away at me? I imagine him in his small officer's quarters, surrounded by the constant hum of engines and the roll of waves, staring at his phone with our text messages on the screen. Did he read them over and over, each word cutting deeper than the last? Did he analyze every lie Linda had told him during their nightly phone calls, remembering how she'd said she missed him while she was planning her next encounter with me? The merchant marine life is one of isolation and discipline. Months at sea with the same crew, following the same routines, dealing with mechanical problems and weather challenges that require calm, methodical thinking. It's a profession that teaches you patience, that shows you how small actions compound into large consequences over time. Maybe that's where Joel learned to be so devastatingly effective in his revenge. At sea, you can't afford to be emotional when a storm hits or equipment fails. You assess the situation, you make a plan, and you execute it step by step. Panic gets people killed. Emotion clouds judgment. But cold, calculated action saves lives and ships. I'll never know because Joel never spoke to me again after that single phone call. He said everything he needed to say through his actions, and those actions spoke louder than any words ever could have. But I do know this: his revenge wasn't just about punishment. It was about justice, about making sure that Linda and I truly understood what we had destroyed. A marriage isn't just a legal contract or a piece of paper. It's a foundation of trust that two people build their entire lives upon. When you shatter that foundation, everything built on top of it collapses. Joel had trusted Linda completely. He worked dangerous jobs in harsh conditions to provide for their future together. He endured months of separation, loneliness, and the constant risks of maritime work because he believed in their partnership. And while he was fighting storms in the North Atlantic, we were making a mockery of that sacrifice in his own home. The cruelest part wasn't just the betrayal itself, it was the timing. Joel would call Linda every few days when satellite coverage allowed, hungry for connection, for her voice, for news from home. And she would talk to him sweetly, telling him she loved him and missed him, sometimes just hours after she'd been with me. I remember one particular evening when Linda's phone rang while we were having dinner on her terrace. It was Joel calling from somewhere off the coast of Nova Scotia. I watched her face transform as she answered, becoming the loving wife again, asking about his day, the weather, whether he was eating well. "I love you too, baby," she said into the phone, her eyes meeting mine across the table. "I can't wait for you to come home." When she hung up, she looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, guilt, defiance, maybe even a little thrill at the deception. "He sounded tired," she said, as if that justified everything. But it didn't justify anything. It just made it worse. Some nights I dream about that evening on Linda's terrace, and I wake up wishing I had made a different choice. Wishing I had been strong enough to say no, to walk away, to protect everyone involved from the pain that followed. I dream about alternate versions of that night, scenarios where I thanked Linda for the wine but went home to my empty apartment. Where I recognized the wedding ring on her finger as a barrier I should never cross. Where I thought about the man in the photograph before I let desire override conscience. In those dreams, Joel comes home to a faithful wife, Linda never has to face the consequences of betrayal, and I never learn what I'm capable of when I prioritize my own gratification over basic decency. In those dreams, nobody gets hurt. But dreams don't change reality, and the reality is that I made my choice with full knowledge of what I was doing. I wasn't seduced or manipulated. I was a grown man who saw an opportunity and took it, regardless of who might be hurt in the process. But I can't change the past, and neither can Linda, and neither can Joel. We all have to live with the consequences of what happened that summer, each of us carrying our own portion of the damage we created together. The aftermath rippled out beyond just the three of us. David, my work partner, found himself questioned by clients who wondered if he knew about my unprofessional behavior. He had to find a new business partner and rebuild his reputation, even though he was completely innocent. His wife worried that the scandal might reflect on their family, and their children heard whispers at school about their father's business associate. Linda's sister in California initially refused to let her stay, afraid that family drama might affect her own marriage and children. It took months of pleading before she agreed to a temporary arrangement. Linda's parents, pillars of their church community, faced their own social consequences when the story became local gossip. The house where it all began was eventually sold to a young couple with children. Sometimes I drive by it on jobs in that neighborhood, and I see kids' bikes in the driveway, toys scattered on the lawn, signs of a happy family building new memories in a place that holds such painful ones for me. The new owners have no idea about the destruction that took place within those walls. They probably think it's a beautiful home with good bones, perfect for raising a family. They don't know about the security cameras that once documented betrayal, or the bedroom where trust was shattered, or the terrace where a marriage began to die. Maybe that's for the best. Houses shouldn't be haunted by the mistakes of their previous occupants. Life should move forward, and new families should have the chance to create their own stories without being burdened by the failures of those who came before. Life goes on as it always does. Joel is somewhere out on the ocean, Linda is starting over in California, and I'm learning to live with the knowledge of what I'm capable of when I let desire override conscience. I've tried dating since then, but it's difficult. How do you explain to someone new that you were once the other man in an affair that destroyed multiple lives? How do you trust yourself not to make the same mistakes when temptation arises again? How do you build something real and lasting when you know how easily it can all be destroyed? The women I've met sense something is off, some damage or baggage that I can't quite hide. They see it in the way I hesitate before committing to plans, in how I sometimes stare off into the distance during conversations, in the careful way I talk about trust and loyalty. They don't know the details, but they recognize the signs of someone carrying guilt. I've thought about leaving Atlanta, following Linda's example and starting fresh somewhere else. But running away feels like another form of cowardice, another failure to face the consequences of my actions. So I stay, I work, and I try to become a better person than I was that July evening. The story ends where it began, with choices and consequences, with the recognition that a single evening can change everything, and that some betrayals echo through lives long after the initial wound has healed. But perhaps the real lesson is simpler than all the psychological analysis and moral reflection. Actions have consequences, and those consequences often extend far beyond what we can anticipate or control. Joel understood this instinctively, which is why his revenge was so complete and so devastating. He didn't just want to hurt us. He wanted to make sure we understood the full scope of the damage we had caused. In the end, he succeeded. Linda and I both learned that betrayal has a price, and that price is often higher than anyone expects to pay. Joel got his justice, even if it couldn't restore what he had lost. And the rest of us got an education in consequences that we'll carry for the rest of our lives. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.